Welcome, guys, to the Monday Mastermind. These are always exciting because you never know what you're going to learn and what you're going to pick up. And I've had quite a few agents tell me, hey, I really learned something on that last week's Mastermind. So that's what these are all about. When I'm talking to agents, I'll constantly refer back to, hey, you should go to our ygrowglobal.com site and see the one we did a few weeks ago on this, right? And it's a great way to connect with agents, give them value, and add to their real estate business. And we're really excited today because we're going to talk about negotiating, high level negotiating, unique ways to negotiate. Some agents need some extra help on that, or want to hear some cool lines. Many times in my career, I've heard somebody else do something unique, and I said, I'm going to save that phrase and do that in my business. So that's what this is all about. And guys, if you want to learn more about what we're doing here at the Grow Global Group, go to ygrowglobal.com. We've got Facebook page, we got YouTube page, we've got the videos recorded from the last trainings, and it even tells you what's coming up. And that's a great way to stay connected. Also, if you need any help or assistance, you can connect up there as well. But we've got a great lineup today with our very own Stephanie Gilezan and Tony Williams. They are seasoned veterans in the industry, and they know what they're doing. They've sold a lot of real estate, and I'm sure they've seen everything under the sun as far as contracts and how to negotiate and how to get a deal done. Because it's not about getting a client, it's about how to get them to the closing table and get it done. So, guys, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie and Tony. Who wants to go first, guys?
You know, I think that the oldest always have to be, don't you, Rob?
That sounds good to me.
That's respect right there. That's respect.
Hey, you all, I love Tony. Let's just do full disclosure. I always pick on Tony because I love him. So anyway, but look, my parents raised me to always treat our seniors with respect.
That's my Asian culture too. My Asian culture too, for sure.
So perfect. Tony's it for a little bit, and then Stephanie will chime in. But Tony, I know you've been in real estate for a long. How long have you been in real estate now?
45 years.
45 years. So you've seen a thing or two. Well, talk to me a little bit about. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you see this or not, but the Board of Realtors gave me this thing and it's a goat. And I thought when they gave it to me, they were saying I was the greatest of all time. And then during the introduction, they said, "No, you're just the old goat. That's what you are." but yeah, I mean, I've been available to agents. For 25 years there as a broker owner of 3 RE/MAX franchises, making myself available. A lot of that had to do with what to do about, to negotiate the deal when they came into the office and they said, "I've got this situation. What can we do to get this thing through?" And I'll tell you that there's been a lot of different types of situations that happen. But the most important thing is always remember who you represent. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing. And I'm a little bit of a stickler, while at the same time trying to be flexible, but I like for things to be in writing. If someone says we want to negotiate a deal and we're going to do everything verbally, or we're going to do it via text back and forth, I like for people to fill out the forms and send me their offer or counter offer, back in writing. That way we all have a good, clear picture of what we've agreed to do in the negotiations. So, you want to be real friendly with agents that you're talking with your co-op situation, but at the same time, you got to remember who you represent and making sure you get a good, clear picture of what's been agreed to. You agree with that, Stephanie?
Oh, I absolutely, Tony. I think, and I don't know, Rob, you want me to go a little
Go
bit?
right ahead. Yeah.
All right. So everybody, you heard Tony, he's been in the industry for 45 years. 2 Saturdays ago, I turned 47 years old. So that's why I give Tony a little bit of a hard time because look, he is the greatest of all time. I don't care what that Realtor Association says. I look up to you, sir. And thank you for giving back to agents as much as you absolutely do, especially here to our Grow Global organization. You all, I'm going on my 26th year in the business, real estate. And one of the things about being successful in this business is being able to read the room, so to speak. And we're not so much in the room any longer, are we? Right? We're not in the room as much as we used to be. We're not in the presence of our clients. And so one of the most important things for you to do is to listen and to hear. And so when I'm negotiating and if I want full-blown control, I gotta hear and I've got to listen. And so I need to have that conversation with my client. I need to listen to them. And, they can text me after that, but I've got to have that conversation with them and I've got to listen to those needs. I've got to hear what's important to them. I need to understand what do they feel is a win. Okay. And so, it's all about drama. It's all about what is that reaction. Okay. And it's the same way when you're speaking to that agent that's representing their client. I'm not going to text them. I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to have a conversation. Okay.
Yep.
If I want to understand now, if I'm representing the buy side, okay, I want to understand what that seller is. Now, am I going to ask us? Okay, now listen, you all, I'm going to apologize up front. Okay. I'm going to apologize up front. I'm a real person and I say some of the things that are off the cusp and I'm going to, all right. I am not going to ask a blatant question like, why is your seller selling? Who gives a shit? Okay. We're not going to say that. We're not going to ask those questions. But what I am going to say is, how motivated is your seller? What is the most important term for them currently? What is the most important term in a contract for them? The reason why I want to ask it that way is because I want to know if it's time. I want to know if it's price. I want to understand what is the most important thing, because when that agent says it and at the speed they say it and at the feeling and the way their voice, the way their tone says it, it's going to tell me everything I need to know about how fast we're going to move about that negotiation. Okay. That's what you got to do is you got to listen. All right. I'm going to pause.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'll throw something into this as well. So when you're talking with the seller, okay, one of the most emotional things that they have going on is the price. You'll have sellers that'll say, I want 500 no matter what. But really, if you can get to a point where you can take that conversation to more of a business conversation instead of an emotional conversation. But now you have to respect the emotions of the time, but at the same time, what you want to do is get to the point where you start talking about walk away, net amount, what you need when you move, those types of things. Will bring it back around to where it should be, because you can work something out if you know what they want to walk away with. Mm-hmm. If you stick with the thing of I'm trying to figure out how to get the emotional price done, it's going to be difficult to make it through. But when you can work off the net, you can make adjustments along the way, i.e. like at your inspection when they do a amendment to address concerns, or maybe that appraisal, maybe the appraisal came in a little low and you can figure out what to do when you're working off net. If that seller keeps on saying, no, I want 500, no, I want 500, no, I want 500, then you really have nothing to work with when you're negotiating. You're gonna work on the times of when the needs are to get to that walkaway net figure. And hopefully you're doing a seller's net sheet. And now I try to keep my seller's net sheet as simple as possible, okay? I mean, even to the point where I'll say, do you have an escrow account? Well, in your escrow account, 30, 45 days, if you have a surplus in there, you're going to get all that escrow back, plus any overages that will, that are there. So they're going to pay out the taxes or whatever. And in that, you're going to get something back later on. I try to keep everything on my net sheet as simple as possible. And, but looking at what the net is more important than what the price is. So you have to find a way to keep talking through the conversation. And just like what Stephanie said, listen to where their pain points are. Listen to what their needs are. You may find out that price is not the issue. Net may not be the issue, but when you're asking them to move out may be the issue. So just listening to what their needs may be. Steph?
I love that. And I'm glad you brought up the net sheet, because listen, guys, it is usually always about price. Tony said it. I gotta have 500,000. We've all heard it from our sellers. I gotta have $1 million. I gotta have 400,000, whatever that number is. Okay. But it ultimately is that net. It is. And so finding out what that net is and working through that backwards with them is what is important. Because here's the thing. We have all walked into situations and scenarios where that seller's price is above what we know that property is going to sell for.
Right.
And the way you combat that, listen to me, you don't tell them that's too much. You do not win when you tell a seller they're wrong. Did you all hear me?
Right.
You do not win when you tell a seller they're wrong. But how you win is when you go through the net process. And the first question you need to ask them is, do you have a mortgage on this property? All right? Do you have a mortgage on this property? And you write that down. And then times how many months of them holding that property until they get down to that net. Okay. Here's why that is important. I turned down a listing several months ago. I told a guy, I said, look, your property's worth $1.9 million. He could not fathom it. He had to have 2.2. Okay. I walked away. I'm not going to waste my time. It finally sold. You know what he's netting? His mortgage payment was a 15 grand a month. You know what the dude's netting? $1,820,000. He should have taken my $1.9 million, shouldn't he?
Yep.
Right? He should have done the math with me. So do the math with your clients, okay? Don't make the mistake that I did and said, look, your property's only worth $1.9 million. I should have just sat down and gone through the $15,000 a month and how many months can you afford to hold this property before you lose your ASS, right? That's what we walk through with these people. Look, 25 years in the business and I still make these mistakes because I get too fast at it. I want to sit down and hurry up and I get way too fast at it. But when we walk through those seller net sheets and we work on those numbers and we do the math, that's why our real estate exams have so much math on it, right? It's not just about what is our commission in percentages time purchase price, guys, or sales price, right? We got to work through those net sheets. And I mean, some states require that as part of the transaction. Like one of the states I'm licensed in is Indiana. It's required by law that we have to do that with a seller. But in another state, Kentucky, that I'm licensed in, it's not required. It should be required everywhere. And we should do it because it actually helps us become better negotiators with our sellers. And it gets it off of the focused price of being overpriced, so to speak. Tony, I'm sure you've run into those exact scenarios with these people, right?
Oh yeah, sure. I would tell you, it's kind of like, where we are right now on this Zoom call. Someone in the background is keeping up with the chat. Okay. And in that chat, a question is going to come up. So, I just made a note and I said, listen for the objection and then offer the value or the solution. When they're looking at these chats, questions are going to come through. And you know what? Stephanie and I, or maybe someone else, Rob, whoever it may be, John, whoever it may be, is going to come up with a solution to your question. When you're sitting down with your client, listen for their objections, and in your mind start thinking about that solution. What can I do to get them where they want to be? Okay. Now, I'm not a real good one from just walking away, if they're overpriced. I'll keep working it, or I'll say, you know what, 45 days from now or 30 days from now, if we don't have activity, there's something wrong with our marketing. It may be our marketing, it could be our price, whatever it may be. Now, I'll tell you this, I'm one, and your broker may teach you a different way. You may want to just talk to your people where you are. But I'm one where when I set a list price, I set it on a point that may be a $5,000 increment. In other words, let's say that I have someone looking for something from 475 to 500, and I price the property at 499, 999. Well, anyone looking from 500 to 525, they're not going to see that property. Don't let a few $100s, totally mess up how they search on the internet for properties. In other words, you want to make sure that you include in the way that you do your pricing, so it brings in the most amount of traffic, the most amount of eyes sees it. That way you can get them closer to what they're looking to do. But listen for the objection and then find the solution. Keep working to get, the solution done.
I've got a great story about that just happened to Kim and I not long ago. My son was selling his home in downtown Atlanta and moving out to the suburbs. And he had already bought his new home, already moved into his new home. Now he's selling his old home in downtown. And all the other homes in the neighborhood were on the market, been on the market a while, not selling at a certain price. And he says, oh, mine are better. I want to go at or over those prices. And Kim just about jumped down his throat and said, no, you're not. You're not going to sell your home. One of your goals is you need to sell this fast because you've already moved, correct? He goes, yes. And he go, but I think I can get more. And so what Kim did, put my son and his wife in her car, drove them around to all the other homes for sale, got them walk through every one of those homes for sale and say, these homes are not selling. They look like yours and they're not selling at this price. If you want to price it at that, it's not going to sell either, right? If you want to sell this fast, let's price it just below these homes and let's sell it fast. They got a contract the first weekend. Here's a follow-up.
Tim, good job.
Right? One of the homes that was not selling came back to Kim recently, a few weeks ago, and said, my part-time agent is not selling my house. What do I need to do? And Kim, she would already moved out. She's moved up north. Kim went to all the other homes in the neighborhood that are not selling and did a FaceTime with her and showed them all the homes that are not selling and why her home is not selling. And so guess what? She got a listing out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're hearing there is communication, with a son. Okay. And you can be a little bit more direct with a son than you can sometimes with your client. But at the same time, they're offering up those things. So recently we had a $900,000 purchase price in the neighborhood, and we sold it, got an offer within 20 hours. And the offer came in lower, but I explained to the seller, the condition of your house warrants this lower offer. There's a lot of dry rot, things like that. So immediately we put an under contract on it once we got through our inspection period. Then we found out at the end of the contract period at closing that the buyer was not going to move in for another 10 days. So I went and I said, hey, look, I'm going to put a sold sign up, the day of the closing. We switched it from under contract to a sold. What happened? One of the neighbors whose house had been listed down the road went up and took a picture of our sign. Okay. They were in a big communication battle with the team they had it listed with. Now, I didn't know any of this, but they call us up and they said, hey, we fired this team because because something is different about the way that you're selling real estate. I said, yeah, you know what it is? We stay in communication. We do what you as the seller want us to do because you're our client. Now we put that thing on the market, okay? That the next house in the same neighborhood, put it on the market, and within 24 hours we had an offer on it because we priced it right. We told them, we said, if we can get just under the rest of the market, you're going to have more activity and it's going to go higher. So, but when we listed it, one of the things that they asked us to do is they said, we want you to do a Saturday and a Sunday open house. And I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. First of all, I don't own an open house sign. And I'm thinking, I'm going to tell them no. And then my wife, Pam, who's on here now, said, we have to find a way to tell them yes. Well, here's what ends up happening. We just kept saying, we're going to do what we can to make you happy. Now, that's not the way we said it to them, okay? But what we said was, okay, we've got a contract on your house. I ordered signs, okay? It was under contract, and we did a Saturday and Sunday open house. And you ready for this? Picked up 15 buyer inquiries as they came in. You know, registering all these people. No one had an agent with them. Now I could have stepped back and said, hey guys, you know what we're going to do? We're going to sell your house. We're going to have good communication with you. But they wanted an open house as bad as I didn't want to do it. We did the open house. Now they gave us a glowing 5-star review. I mean, they literally took a picture of the wife hugging our sign and put it up on our reviews. And she put a statement there that says, you know, the picture tells the whole story. And she was hugging our sign. So we had 2 closings in there. Why? And she told me, says, hey, look, there's people in our neighborhood that we want you to contact. And I said, you know what? We're going to drop a little note to everybody in the neighborhood. All that happened because my wife says to me, do what they want to do. Let's do what they want to do. Listen to what they want to do and figure out a way to do what they want to do. And a lot of times we as agents, you know, we'll just say, nope, I don't do business that way. That's not how it's going to happen. I didn't own an open house sign. Now I own open house banners. You know what I'm talking about? Not only do I have signs, I have banners. I can tool up everybody in my organization and our company to have open houses. But it's going to pay off long term. And this is in a $900,000 neighborhood. Okay. So listen to what the people want. You may not agree, but at the same time, do what you can to meet their needs, meet their expectations. And they had a great need because he had already moved on to Cincinnati and she was living there by herself trying to get the house sold. So we told her, we said, we're gonna, well, you know, we talked to each other and we said, we're going to go far past what the team that had it before did, where they wouldn't communicate. We said, we're going to over communicate with these people. Just find out where their pain point is and then get it done.
Tony, how far below the other people's price did you all go?
We only went about $10,000 below, you know, what the other ones were. And it was just enough to make the nudge happen. And then all of a sudden the activity started coming in, and where they didn't have any showings by the other team, no one looked at it. You know, the first weekend we had with the open house, we had over 20 showings. Okay.
Wow.
And the price ended up going back up to where they were looking in the beginning. Okay. Because then you get multiple offers start happening and all those kind of things. And one of the things we talk about when we're negotiating with our buyers and our sellers is we talk about strategy. You know, this is what we do to get things done. I'll tell you another quick little story. It took 2 years to do it, but a church contacted me and they were in trouble and they said, hey, can you just come over and read the note that we just signed? And I told them right up front, I'm not an attorney, but I'll try to explain what you signed. What they signed was a 3-year extension on a $2 million note. And in the fine print, it said that the bank could go and take their general account money if they didn't make the payments in time. And I just, you know, I sat down, I wanted to list the property. They weren't ready to list the property, but I listened to their pain point and I said, yeah, I'll come take a look at what you did. And all I did really was read it back to them. That's all I did. Well, the next month comes along, they didn't have enough income coming in, and then the head of the trustees at this place calls me up and says, "You're not going to believe what happened." I said, "Let me guess. They took money from your general account because you couldn't make the payment." He goes, "Yeah, we can't make salary now." And then he said, "Can you come and list the property?" I said, "Yeah." Came in, list. Now here's the big issue that we had. No one in that church wanted to sell it to a developer. Okay. They were like, "We got to find a way to keep it a church." Okay. Well, developers wouldn't take it because there were so many problems with the property. Okay. And I just had to keep listening to what their needs were. And I'm telling this little story to somebody, and I said, these guys are trying to find a way to sell it to another church. And then a guy calls me up and he says, "What about a Christian school?" And I said, "Maybe it's the same purpose, what they want to do." And so I contacted this Christian school this guy told me about. Now that Christian school came in $2 million less on a $5 million less price, $2 million less. But here's what happened. Here's where the negotiating started. Immediately, the seller said, "We're not going to take it." And I reminded them, well, remember your pain points. They're taking your general money. You have no money in the bank. Okay. And I said, "Let's take a look at this further." And they said, "We're not going to take 3 million. We want 5 million. They're trying to stay hard on that price. I went back to the buyer and I said, let's come up with a solution that meets their pain. And here's what that buyer said. "What if we buy it at the 3 million? Okay. Let them stay 10 years rent-free in the auditorium portion of a big complex with gymnasiums and all this stuff. What if we let them stay in that auditorium rent-free for 10 years, have their church there? They won't pay for any utilities. They won't pay for any repairs or anything." So I started doing calculations with their accountant, with the seller's accountant. We figured out the value of that, guess what, was $1.9 million. We did the deal at 3. We did the agreement, negotiated out the agreement for the long-term free lease. Okay. Free lease. They took the 3 million. When they closed, the church put $1 million in an account. That's what they walked away with, was $1 million, selling it at 3. And then they got 10 years of free lease. Now, on the front end, if I had told that seller, that church, "Sorry, you're not going to get 5 million. It's just not going to happen," then they would have started losing from their account and probably at some point hit foreclosure is what would wind up being. So you have to listen what the needs are. Going in and just reading back to them got me in the door, got me going. And then people started calling me saying, we think we might know somebody that would buy this. And one thing led to another. We did the deal. It was all done. And they paid me a handsome fee for doing this, but I worked on it close to 2 years. Pam could tell you.
Wow.
Listen to the need and just work through the process of where the pain points are. That's how you negotiate. Sorry, long story.
Awesome. No, that's awesome, Tony. I mean,
Yeah.
no, that's awesome. There's all kinds of ways, and as an agent, we have to be real cautious too, because when we're representing a seller, we also need to be honest. And I've got a great story that happened, that came to full fruition over the weekend, that back in July, some clients called and said, "Listen, if we were to move, we only would buy this one property." Okay. So very full disclosure, and you all know, those that know me, I don't work with buyers. Okay. So if I'm going to work with a buyer, it's going to be a one and done, and that's it. And they told me this is a one and done. If we don't buy this property, that's it. And so, they tell me the property. I know the property extremely well. It was listed for $3.2 million. And I told them very, very upfront, it's not worth it. It's been on the market in one of the best markets. It's been on the market 547 days for a reason. It's overpriced, right? It needs a lot of work, da-da-da. But anyway, we go and take a look at it, and we make an offer for 2.6 million because that's what it's worth. And the seller very quickly, well, here, let me back up. The listing agent, we walk through this property, okay? The listing agent tells us that there's multiple people interested in the property and they just had a second showing. However, as I'm walking down to the lower level, cobwebs covered my entire face. Okay. So we know nobody was there. I mean,
Right.
literally cobwebs in my hair. So do not fib, because you just don't. You're gonna get caught. Tell the truth, okay? Just tell the truth. Because as soon as she said that to me, I went, oh my God. I'm Stephanie Gilezan. You cannot get away with it. No way, no way, no way. So anyway, we make an offer, 2.6. The guy counters us 2.9. When I submitted that offer, I told them, I said, this is one and done. Take it or leave it. And I mean it. And they didn't. They countered. They didn't believe us. And we walked. And every 3 days since then, they have called me asking for us to come back. Why? Because they didn't have any other circles. They didn't have anybody circling that property. Why? Because the cobwebs hit me in the face, right? So literally, I told my buyers last week, I said, look, guys, I said, I think we can go back and we'll go in way less than that. And so they got it on Saturday for 150,000 less than what we offered in July.
Wow.
Love that.
Negotiation. And it's because I heard and I listened, and we did take somewhat advantage of the fact that the agent lied to me. And I mean that wholeheartedly. It was a team of agents. And all three of them did not have the same story. And I caught them in lies. And I'm telling you right now, you all, when you are dealing with experienced people, and I'm experienced, you will get caught. And for me, I listen and I hang on every single word, and I'm good at what I do. And I caught them, and there was nothing that they could do about it. And I know that it's October, and I know that in 2 months, and I know that that house is vacant. And I know that every 3 days they've called me, and I know that they want to sell that house. And I know that their listing is expiring on October 31st. And I know that they've had it on the market 2.5 years. And I know that they've lied. You know what I'm saying? So I know these things. And so that their concocted story was the demise of their loss of negotiation. I'm telling you the truth. Now, again, their seller's never going to know that, but ultimately he's the one that lost. Oh, and he's paying my commission, by the way, because I put that in the deal too.
That's right.
Hey, I'll tell you, we've been talking a lot about, what to do with sellers and negotiation with sellers here. And, for both buyers and sellers as agents, it's so important that you keep up with deadlines. Okay. We keep a list in a printed, sheet of what our deadlines are, knowing, when that inspection is going to be done, knowing when the appraisal is going to be done, knowing when you, have final approval of that loan, when that's to be finished up, knowing that you can call as a seller's agent, a representative, the lender, at least in our state, we can call the lender, hey, is the buyer getting everything in on time? Keep up with your dates in the contract, because in the contract, it's written out when these things will happen, because you may need in those dates to renegotiate things. Okay. So I think that's really important as we represent both sides to keep up the dates. And I want to tell you, if you don't keep up the dates, you may find out that you as an agent, it ends up costing you something. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So that's really important to do. On the buyer side, I made a few notes about this. Is now that the thing with NAR has happened and the settlements all happened and everything, we have to make sure that we have switched over to what we call a skill-based process. In other words, you have to know your skills. Did you know that in 2023, it said that only 41% of the agents out there explained a buyer's agency agreement to their buyers? only 41%. So the thing that we need to do is as we're negotiating, maybe on our compensation, at the time of the listing, or maybe our compensation with the buyer, the thing that you have to do about all this is make sure that you go over to a skill-based process. In other words, know your values. One of the things that I like that I heard somewhere was the thing is that sellers, they're making decisions based on nets, okay, walkaways. That's why they're making their decisions. They're making decisions on whether or not they're going to list with you based on how you're going to get that net to them at closing. But a buyer, okay, on a buyer's side, the question would be, would you like to hire me to represent you on your purchase? Now, if I'm going out and I'm hiring someone to say, build my house, okay, and I'm looking for a builder, I want to make sure that I hire a professional that knows what they're doing. I'm not going to hire a roofer to do my septic tank or something like that. That's just not going to happen. You're going to hire a professional that knows what they're doing. So when you're in the process of negotiating with a buyer on whether or not to represent them as a buyer, you want to know what your values are. The other thing is that when you're talking about, compensation on a buyer side, there's a few things here I made note of. Is there's many ways to negotiate how you're going to get paid. Now, Stephanie really knows how this works because she's been in the commercial realm forever.
Yeah.
But a few things that I wrote down, Stephanie, is, will you be paid by the seller? Okay, will you be paid by the seller, or will it be through concessions that are out there? When an agent goes out and lists a property, they're going to talk about, hey, let's talk about concessions. Now, on that net sheet that I do a line item that's negotiations. Now, I never tell the buyer the amount of money that my seller agrees to negotiate. I'd be foolish to do that. But I'll build in on that $500,000 property. I'll build in, let's say, $10,000, $15,000 in the expense lines, and I'll tell them you may or may not have to pay this. But the thing is, if that seller is going to, later on help with closing cost or compensation for the buyer's agent, it may be able to come out from that concession. That we may be talking about in the future. I'm not seeing quite as much where a buyer agent compensation is paid out of loan amounts, and keeping up with what's going on in the industry on how that works. And then, of course, for a little bit, maybe 1 or 2% or here or there, you may be able to build it into the sales price. So just remember that a seller is looking at a net process, and you should be able to build in concessions in that price and negotiate those as you go. So always talk net to a seller. And then when you're talking to a buyer, what you're trying to do is getting them to the place where they understand that you're worth being hired as a representative, what your value is. We had someone, we just redid a 1959 ranch, and it wound up it's a wonderful place. I love where we live now. But it would have never happened if I hadn't really taken some time and looked at, how this work was going to be done by the skilled laborers. And that's what a buyer does whenever they are looking for representation. They're trying to decide, just like a seller would, is this agent someone that I want to work with to represent me? So listen for their objections and offer value in their objections in that as well. On the commercial side, Stephanie, you need to speak into this because buyer agency compensation, that's all been handled, essentially, I really believe, Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's all been handled either the buyer pays it or it's handled in the offer to the seller. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And numerous occasions, compensation's never been offered by the listing brokerage. So, in order to get paid on the commercial side, you need that. You've always had to have that buyer broker compensation agreement, or you run the risk of working for free. And so it's nothing new in the commercial space to have that covered. So, look, you just don't go to work showing property without getting that, compensation already taken place. I mean, it's very easy, look, justifying your value is also a negotiation, right? I mean, it's very easy telling these stories, Tony. It's easy for you to justify your value because you've got so many stories to tell on how you have easily proven value to your past clients and so forth. Same with me when I do go to work for a buyer. If I go to work for a buyer, but also too, in setting that up for the simple fact of being able to on the seller side, being able to educate them as well too, of offering up compensation, and what that means for them as well too. So, it works both ways. But I think, Tony, I mean, in the past, did you ever work with buyer agreements before this?
Oh, yeah. In Georgia, we worked,
Yeah,
because of Beretta law that went through 15, 20 years ago. This is nothing new
right.
to our process at all. And,
Yeah.
we've always had buyer agency agreement ever since Beretta went through. There was a time where everything was caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. But, through the years, we have found a way to prove our value to both the seller and to the buyer in order to be compensated. Um, the things that you're seeing here now is we always have had listing agreements. Okay, we've always sat down with the seller and said, here's the agreement, to list. Okay, this is how we're going to get it into the market and how we're going to make sure we promote it through marketing. And really what's happening right now is that this is a mirror of that listing agreement for the buyer. You have to just start thinking that way. A buyer agency agreement is a mirror of a listing agreement from a seller, and it's just a matter of explaining your worth in representation. So the thing you want to do is, as you're talking to the buyer, is you want to prepare on the front end the value that you bring, and you can get that value from a lot of different places. Now, we're a lot of agents from a lot of different companies on this call this morning, so we're not going to talk about the amount of compensation to be offered or the amount of compensation to be paid. That'd be a direct violation. But the thing is for sure you can get more on compensation if you can show more value. That buyer and the listing, matter of fact, that seller, if they see you as someone that's really going to bring value to the table, they don't mind paying for it. I'll tell you, they don't mind paying. On the buyer side, it may be where they agree to a higher buyer agent compensation on the buyer's agency agreement so that you can get paid by the seller higher. Okay. Does that make sense? Because now we're in a situation that if you put 0 or 1% on that buyer agency agreement, that's all you're going to get paid. But you need to be able to negotiate with that buyer a higher compensation, okay, so you can get paid by the seller if you were to put it into the offer.
That's
Seth?
right.
That's a good point because I'm actually seeing
something?
in most markets the buyer agency side commissions are going up because of that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
look. Oh, go ahead, Tony.
Now, I don't think, I don't think you're going to see a lowering in prices right now. I mean, supply and demand is what controls prices. Okay. And we still really are at a lower supply across the country. The demand of the buyer is not quite there yet because they're still waiting on the interest rates to come down. But you as an agent, you want to build your negotiating skills on maybe get that 2-1 buy down done where the compensation, goes back to the buyer so they can get some more money to buy their interest rates down. You have to know your market, know how to negotiate with the tools that you have found out in your market to get the deal done. The whole thing is to get the deal done for both parties and move ahead. But I don't see commission rates coming down because of this at all, because, you know, if anything, they're going to go up because we're showing more value at the table. You know, we're showing this is how we get paid, and this is why we get paid. Okay. So if you can, you know, now if you're just going to go in there and just say, I'm going to throw a sign up in the yard and we'll call you one day, you know, I wouldn't pay you for that. You know, if you were my listing agent, I wouldn't pay you for that. There's no way. But I'll tell you, if you show me a good marketing plan, you show me the value of what you're doing, not only am I going to list with you, but I'm probably going to go with you to go buy the next house because of that value.
Absolutely. Well, and two, you know, for those of you who do represent buyers on the buy side, I mean, look, on the commercial side, I've had buyers call that say, Stephanie, I want to buy a retail strip center. I want an 8% cap rate. I've seen everything that's listed on LoopNet and Crexy. I don't want any of those. I want you to find me something off market. Okay, well, let me send you my buyer compensation agreement. Oh, well, no, I'm not signing that. Well, then I'm not working for you. Period, guys, period. You know, I mean, because I'm not going to go hunt and peck. Do you know how many hours that's going to take for me to go drum up and make phone calls of owners to see if somebody wants to sell something? I mean, that's time, that's effort, that's energy. And if I really do find, and here's what I say to people like that. I say, listen, sir, if I find something with that kind of cap rate, I might want to buy it myself. So you know what? I probably need 5% cooperating commission from you in order for me to really tell you about it. Okay. Why not?
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit different, but you know, that's called value, because sometimes when people, you know, want something that's a little bit difficult in a market like that we're in, you know, hey, hunting and pecking, I mean, that's what we do, right? So you just have to understand and know how you present that to the people.
Stephanie, have you seen through the years, being the way that the commissions are structured on the commercial side, have you seen commission rates go down because you're showing value when you explain the transaction to your buyers and sellers? Have you seen the commission rates go down on the commercial side?
No.
No, no, you're not, because, and that's the thing you've got to remember. We as agents are out there to provide a service, and we get paid for that service. But if you're not providing a service and showing the service that you're going to provide, you may find that your commissions go down because people think, well, you know, I'm going to pay a discount price for a discount service, you know. But if you provide top value service and you know what your value is, and you find a way to negotiate through all that, then you're going to find that your income is going to go up while you do that as a skilled professional.
Hey, Tony.
Rob, you've been teaching agents forever, you know, throw in on some of this negotiation stuff.
Well, I've got a unique story, but somebody else had a question right quick. Let's go to that first, but I'll tell my story in a second.
I was just going to say,
Okay.
I look at buyer consultations as listing agreements. You know, you present your value up front, and you present, you know, state what your compensation rate is, and go from there. So it's a buyer consultation is taking on a whole new value with this NAR settlement. It's definitely much more lucrative than it used to be. So I'm excited about where we are right now.
I agree. Totally agree with it. Well, so I've got a story about a unique negotiating thing my dad did 50 years ago. He used to tell me this story. There was this tract of land that was very attractive. Everybody wanted it. Every developer wanted it. Every agent wanted it. Everybody tried to get the little old lady who lived in the house by herself to sell it, and she would never sell it. Didn't want to sell it. Didn't want to bother with it. Wasn't going to do anything. So my dad goes over, he really wanted this property. So he sits down and talks to her, starts asking her questions. I mean, the theme has been today, listen, right? Listen to your clients, listen to what they want. And start talking to her about her past, how long she grew up there, how little she lived there. She lived there with her husband before he passed. I mean, all the stories. And he said, "Where's your children?" "Oh, my children are 4 hours away from here." And and he says, "Have you ever thought about selling the property and moving?" "Oh no, I could never do that. I don't want to go through the hassle. It's too much trouble. I don't want to sell. I just want to stay here until I die." And he goes, "Well, why don't you move closer to your children?" And she goes, "Well, it's just too much trouble to find another house and to move my stuff, and I don't want to do that." And he goes, "Well, what if I were to find you a place near your children, build you a house, and move you? Would you be interested?" And she goes, "Would you do that?" He goes, "Absolutely." So he built her a house near her kids, moved everything from her house there, and she sold the land to him. Nobody else could get it sold. That's about listening, understanding what the client wants, and figuring a solution.
Yep. And Rob, that's how where I live, my development where I live, that's how I got this property too. And nobody else got it because I sat and I had a conversation with her and asked her what she wanted, and I listened. And I did. I mean, I'm telling you all, it's the oldest thing in the book, and it works.
And the magic words in negotiation is what if. You heard Rob say that. What if we did this? What if we did this? What if we did this? And if you just keep the conversation open by asking the what ifs,
Yeah.
and that just, you can't shut down. We as agents, sometimes our egos and our prides take over and we shut down. And then it won't be long till we're all broke because our egos took over. But when you keep the conversation going, you listen and you say, what if, then, your negotiation is going to work things out for those clients. It's great.
Yeah.
Great.
It opens up their imagination and their thinking. Well, what if that happens? And they start thinking about it.
Yeah. Great.
Anybody have any questions for us while we're wrapping this up? We're got a few more minutes left, or any scenarios they want to throw out?
Anybody else have a good story they want to share?
No, but we're going to tomorrow because Stephanie and I are getting on the phone with someone, and everything she just said she's going to do on this call tomorrow. They have a price in mind. They know exactly what they want. They don't have to sell. And Stephanie, I'm really excited to see you turn Oprah and Lonnie around.
And we're going to do it, and we're going to tell that story on this Zoom call one day, and it'll be a success because we know we want to. And if
we want to. So I'll tell you about it when we talk later.
Yeah, I like what Todd Edwards said in the chat. He said, so the magic is, what if we actually listen to our client?
Yeah,
that's true.
Awesome.
It could happen in your business doing that. That's perfect.
I love it.
Good.
I love it, Todd. Excellent.
Great stuff today, guys.
Very cool. Well, hey, thank you guys for joining us for another amazing Monday Mastermind. We've got more to come. Julie, what's up next for next week?
I think
we're going to talk about the different market updates and different type of area. And we have like 5 experts that we're going to bring in. 3 to 5 experts.
Nice.
That is next week's call is going to be amazing because we're going to talk about we're going to have the big cities, we're going to have secondary markets, we're going to have tertiary markets. We're going to talk about what is happening in the United States as it relates to real estate, and it's going to be relative to everybody on this call because we're going to cover every single type of market that exists. So make sure you show up because we're going out grabbing the best in each of these types of markets so that they can share and pour into you exactly what's working for them. All right.
Love it. I can't wait. And if you want to hear a recording of this talk, it'll be at ygrowglobal.com. Send it out to your agents that missed the call. It'll be a great way to help them to grow their business.
Yeah, and we want to send our love and prayers out to anybody in the path of that was in the path of the last hurricane, and we know Milton is coming. So
I
everybody
just
that's
heard it was
there,
upgraded too, so it's going to be
please,
bad.
yes,
It
please
just
stay
moved
safe
to
and
a
take care of
category
yourselves.
5.
Five,
Yeah.
cat 5.
5 right now. So pray for all the Tampa, Florida. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
anybody in
Yeah.
that path, we you know, you're in our prayers, and take care of yourselves. Be safe.
Yeah, I just returned from North Carolina. I was at Spruce Pine.
yes.
The biggest thing that's happening over there is the amazing amount of goods that's coming in, and now we're having to go out to the people, and those people are so prideful. They say, don't give it to me, give it to somebody that needs it, but they all need those things. So I would say, you know, a financial gift to some of these organizations that's out there doing boots on the ground would be a good thing to take a look at. Loading up and sending a bunch of water and all may not be the answer right now. It may be later, but 2 or 3 weeks out. Because right now, literally, the streets are lined with things that people have given. We filled up 2 warehouses while we were there, and
Wow.
and I had the privilege of working on a work team that went up to the top of the mountain there in Spruce Pine, and we sent an underwater drone into the reservoir to find out why the inlets were blocked. And so tomorrow the divers will go in and clean those inlets out, and they'll go from about a 5% or 5,000 per minute flow to 900 gallons per minute, 900,000 gallons per minute. And it'll flow the water into that town once they clean those inlets out. But there's a lot of great things going on, but at the same time, you know, it's that same thing of negotiating. We'd have to go over there and negotiate with those homeowners saying, please take this, you're going to need it, you know.
Right.
Oh no, you know, give it to someone else. I don't need it. Oh yeah, everyone's going to have a need, especially in 2 to 3 weeks.
Mhm.
Then the people in Florida, you know, we need to really, really watch for them.
Yeah,
Everybody joining together.
And also the workers. I've got an agent friend of mine, her son's a lineman, and he was involved in an accident. He's from Tennessee. He was involved in an accident. And he's got 2nd and 3rd degree burns all over his body. He was transferred to a burn unit
Wow.
in Georgia. And you know, obviously their family's thrown in chaos right now, you know, just one of the many stories. So just keep a lot of these people in your thoughts, everybody.
Absolutely.
So anyway, have a great week. Let's go out and crush it.
Have a great week, guys.
Thank
Guys,
you.
See you
next
next week.
Monday.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
next Monday.